Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. We are going to start this session, which is High Impact Partnerships for Cultural Rights. The session will run in two different segments. So our first panel of speakers are on the stage. We are going to open this session with a short film. And there are a series of films that the Dublin City Council and the Culture Company made around our programme of work that exemplifies the type of partnerships and experiences and stakeholders that we have involved in our cultural programming. And in all of the videos, we have included the voice of a cultural institution, the voice of an artist, the voice of a participant. It's really about the kind of the qualitative information that they tell us about what it's like and what it means to them, because their words make far more impact than my words, because mine are just words on a page, but theirs are their living experiences. So once that's done, I'll then invite Richard Shakespeare, the Interim Chief Executive of Dublin City Council, to take the podium. Thank you.
What was really unique about our work with the Culture Company is that they formed relationships between different organisations, different artists, different parts of Dublin City Council, which had never been formed before. I mean, we don't have the resources of the building to build on the number of relationships with this city, which is necessary to have a genuine engagement with it.
Although these institutions have, and the libraries, have their own way of reaching out and great outreach programs, the Culture Company goes out, meets people wherever they are. They talk with them, have tea with them. It's like a dating app for cultural institutions and community groups.
The role I have as an artist with Culture Company is quite different to other organisations in that the relationship and the respect and the trust has been established already. The community really feel that they have full ownership of where the project is going, that it is done at their pace, and it's reflective of their life in their community context.
There's the main idea in a way to bring people into the institutions, to make them know that they're their institutions, but it's also bringing the resources of something like the Abbey out to people as well. We've done amazing collaborations with different artists who've come in to different sort of projects, and I don't think without the Culture Company brokering that, being the facilitator for that, we'd ever have got that far.
What makes Culture Company particularly unique is that they have a wide team of people who all step in sync with each other, because it's not just about the art activity that is important. So as an artist, I feel incredibly well supported.
This work matters because art matters. And so I think the Culture Company really helps us stop that shrinking of what is possible with art and keeps it open and keeps it connected to the people of Dublin.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome to Dublin, and as Chief Executive, it's great to see so many of you here, and I do hope you're enjoying your stay. The opening statement of Dublin City's development plan confirms that it is a plan which sets out how the city will develop to meet the needs of all residents, workers and visitors. The aim of this plan is to improve the quality of life for its citizens and make sure that Dublin is an attractive place to live, work and visit. The plan confirms the city's commitment and supports the development of a shared vision for culture in the city through collaboration. Throughout the plan, Dublin's distinct usage of the term culture, which is described as aesthetic forms and practices, culture as a way of life, and I'm after losing my spot here, culture as a way of life, and culture as a resource for supporting human development. It is this multidimensional understanding of culture that is evidenced across all departments and sections in Dublin City Council, from mobility and transport, climate action, heritage and arts, parks, community development and sport. Oh, what happened here? It is critical that any definition of culture, what culture is, remains flexible and multidimensional. Everyone must be able to say what culture means to them, and city policymakers need to hear and respond to these different definitions. There are clear connections between the strategic principles of the City Development Plan and the transformations required by cities outlined in UCLG's Pact for the Future, which strongly states the effective role of cities in social, environmental and cultural policy. These strategic principles include a network of sustainable neighbourhoods, promoting social inclusion and integration of all communities, building a network of thriving spatial and sectoral clusters to provide a strategic focus for employment and innovation, helping to build an integrated transport network with greater choice of public transport and active travel, making provision for cultural facilities throughout the city and increasing awareness of our cultural and built heritage. Also, a connected and livable city with a distinct sense of place based on active streets and quality public spaces, ensuring quality architecture, urban design and green spaces to provide quality of life, good health and well-being for all. And finally, improving the livability of Dublin by embracing innovation and using technology to address the city challenges and improve the quality of life. These strategic principles can be readily identified within the 3 pillars of UCLG's Pact for the Future. People, having equal opportunity, fairness and justice for everyone and for every place. Planet, to transform our collective relationship with nature to ensure positive climate change. And government, which places all citizens and communities at the core of decision making. The role of culture can be seen clearly across all 3 pillars, but most significantly through people. Dublin recognised the value of citizen-led engagement and participation in culture in 2015 when it prepared a bid to be the European Capital of Culture. The bid process highlighted how people-centred engagement in local neighbourhoods and community spaces facilitated different types of conversations and partnerships. New challenges were identified and solutions found through discussion between different stakeholders at local, community, cultural and municipal levels. Dublin City Council's Culture Strategy 2016 to 2021 confirmed this need for people-centred cultural programming and consultation. The city is currently developing its 2nd cultural strategy, and the key areas of focus are people participation and place, artists and makers, programming, capital, places and space, policy and advocacy. In 2018, following a 2-year pilot programme, Culture Connects, which was a people-led cultural and creative programme, we established Dublin City Council Culture Company to operate cultural buildings and programmes throughout the city using this people-first methodology. Dublin City understands the value and importance of placing people's voices at the centre of cultural policy, whether it be through operating a museum such as 14 Henrietta Street, which won the European Museum Association's Celetto Prize in 2020, in recognition of its placing people and community at the centre of its participatory engagement model in the development, restoration and operation of a museum. In 2022, Dublin won the UCLG Global Award for Cultural Engagement for its AWE programme, a new model of connecting people with culture through accessibility, well-being and evidence. Devised by the Culture Company, it puts the people of Dublin at the centre of cultural policy through direct collaboration. The programme looked at how people accessed culture, could cultural participation support increased well-being, and how cultural participation impacts how connected people feel to their neighbourhood and city. So throughout 2021 and 2022, Dublin City Council recognised how participation in culture played a key role in diverse projects and actions across the Council's work with people, communities and neighbourhoods. Sections in the Council such as the libraries, parks, heritage, community development, climate action, community arts office, archaeology, sport, the city gallery and culture are all delivering innovative solutions through culture on the ground in neighbourhoods where people are happy to participate and feel a strong sense of ownership in the work they are creating. Examining the impact of this work and the value of this method of citizen participation in culture, we found the legacy of these projects can be identified as follows. There are immediate benefits for individual participants. They gain confidence to take part in more projects with greater ambition and greater participation. They've greater self-confidence and self-awareness that can lead to lasting behavioural change, and it has a strongly positive association with Dublin City Council. Dublin continues its practice of citizen engagement and listening through an all-year-round consultation process called Tea and Chats, where the City Council's Culture Company's specialised engagement team meet with people in places where they are, community centres, local halls, libraries, supermarkets, and even their homes, to ask them what's important to them in their daily lives, what they like to do, how they function in the life of the city. Tea and Chats takes place in all corners of the city and speak with all groups of people across all walks of life. The rich information gathered through Tea and Chats informs how Dublin develops cultural programming and infrastructure. It is fed into City Council policy and decisions through submissions to the City Development Plan and the development of a cultural audit and map project. The cultural audit and map project, known as Culture Near You, has an external-facing information function alongside an important internal GIS and planning City Council function. The cultural audit and map allows us to track cultural infrastructure across the city with live and accurate data, new development and planning requirements, and map use and public interest through data analytics. So finally, Dublin has recognised the value of renewing access to cultural rights for the people of the city and ensures their rights to discover, create, share and enjoy creativity builds the cultural roots of communities and supports well-being in all corners of the city. Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to introduce Antoine Guibert, who's the expert on the UCLG Committee on Culture, if you want to come to the lectern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shakespeare. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Shakespeare, for this introduction. I am going to switch in French, my native language. I'm much more comfortable, so I invite you to put the headphones. Bonjour à tous. Bon après-midi. Merci.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, all, and thank you very much to the City of Dublin for welcoming us here. To start this session on cultural rights, I have the honor and the privilege to present to you the new tool that we started building in the UCLG Committee on Culture and is called currently Culture 21+. This tool is the continuity of the work of the Committee on Culture since 2004. We have a deep and strong commitment for cultural rights, for the links between culture, citizenship and sustainable development. And we have 4 key tools that were developed in 2004. For the first one, 2010, we also have a new tool to have a culture as a tool for citizenship and sustainable development. In 2015, we adopted Culture 21 as an action plan, and in 2020, the Rome Charter to guarantee cultural rights for inhabitants of cities. So we have started on a new path. UCLG has adopted its Pact for the future, and nearly 10 years after Culture 21 action. So this is why we started to think about building a new tool to carry on our work. Since 2015, we have had other learning programs. We've had the leading cities, we've had the pilot cities, and many of your cities and territories have taken part in those learning programs, which means that today we were able to assess our progress and assess the changes that we have seen since 2015. And this has fed our new tool that we want to adopt for 2025. Culture 21 is the current title, but if you have other ideas, this is only a temporary title, so do write to us. The idea of this new tool is to update Culture 21 actions because the context has changed a lot since 2015. We've had a world pandemic, we've had new challenges, we've had new themes that and challenges that have appeared much more strongly than at the time. We talk a lot more, for example, of culture and gender equality. In 2015, we went really not talking much about culture and LGBT+. So we have brought about new themes to update our local actions. The new framework, this is a draft at the moment, we're still experimenting with it. This new program has 3 axes. They are the axes of the Pact for the Future: people, planet, and governance. And we are also proposing 6 work blocks, 30 action areas, and 200 concrete targets for those actions. The aim is to have a working tool, a guide, to support and accompany cities to guarantee cultural rights on a given territory, so that those cultural rights become the engine of sustainable development in the area. We have started to test this tool in 3 cities: in Jeonju, in South Korea, in Mexico City, and in Lisbon, capital of Portugal. The aim of this process is to experience this first draft of the tool with the view to improve it over time. We are going to carry on organizing workshops, as we did in Mexico City, in Jeonju, and in Lisbon, and we're going to test it in real life with the real workshops with the stakeholders locally, and we want to have a self-assessment of the territory, first of all, and also use the tool to design and build public policies, to build cultural programs, to build actions that are going to be linked to cultural rights and sustainable development. We want to carry on co-designing these tools with all network members. This is why we would like to invite you, if you are interested, if your city is interested, to invent this with us. And next year, for 2024, we would like to be able to test this tool in 8 to 10 cities all around the world, so that we can have your input from the ground, so that we can carry on co-building this tool, which we aim to adopt in 2025. Thank you very much for your attention.
Pursue the session, and I let Mr. Shakespeare to introduce.
Well done, Antoine. Thank you. If I could call on Isabel Massey, who's a councillor for culture and tourism with Maputo City Council.
No. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like once again to express my gratitude for this opportunity. Today, in a different panel, I was here yesterday. Today, we'll be sharing about partnerships and cultural rights, specifically looking to sustainable development. In general, cultural rights, we look at cultural rights as the permission or the privilege for an individual or groups to participate in culture and to sustain culture. Our mother law, the Constitution of the Republic of Mozambique, I'm Mozambican, I'm coming from Maputo City, has a chapter dedicated to cultural rights, specifically the freedom of culture creation and also the dissemination of Mozambican culture and the development of Mozambican culture, and people benefit from cultural achievements and benefit other people. In Maputo City, specifically Maputo municipality, we consider ourselves as very well equipped in terms of cultural rights. I will be sharing some examples of the different components of cultural rights in Mozambique and in Maputo specifically. The first one is the access to cultural spaces, the participation in cultural events, The other component of cultural rights is the preservation of cultural heritage, the cultural education, cultural policies, incentives and rewards, and also intellectual property. Access to cultural spaces as part of cultural rights. Maputo City Council funds and runs the Municipality Cultural Center. The name of that municipal cultural center is Nzinza, which allows access to culture for unprivileged communities, and it's the biggest network of dancers, choreographers, and groups in the country. Maputo City also allows access to public spaces by cultural events organizers, cases of Kinani Festival. I talked about that festival yesterday, and very recently, the biggest Pan-African dance, Africa Dance, the festival that have just took place during the month of November. Another component of cultural rights, or another example of cultural rights is the participation in cultural events. For 18 years, the municipality organized Festival do Batuque. This is Portuguese, is our official language, Portuguese. Festival do Batuque is Batuque Festival, is a festival on drums and dance, a traditional dance festival that showcases and celebrates the cultural diversity of Mozambique, involving 7 municipality districts and 63 neighborhoods. The municipality also facilitates and has memorandums of understanding with several events and festivals. Cases of Asgo Festival, that one of the biggest festivals of music that we have in Mozambique, the Winter Theater Festival, the Classic Music Festival, the Moments of Jazz, the More Jazz Series. This More Jazz Series is a festival organized by the musician Moreira Shongisa, who recently won a prestigious Rest of Africa award. We have also Standard Bank Acacia Jazz this year with the participation of a Lifetime Achievement Award musician, Mozambican musician Jimmy Lulu, who is a distinguished, have been distinguished with a career award in South Africa. He is a Mozambican, but have been recognized in South Africa because we share our heroes. South Africa is a neighboring country to Mozambique, and we don't mind to share our heroes with other countries. Culture has no boundaries, so we do that because we consider ourselves in Africa as brothers and sisters when we are neighboring countries. So we share this hero with South Africa. The other part of cultural rights is the preservation of cultural heritage. Maputo is the only city in Mozambique that has a regulation on protection and management of cultural heritage in Maputo municipality, which has been approved in 2022, which establishes mechanisms in place for preservation and protection of local cultural heritage sites, historical landmarks, and traditional practices. Another example that we would like to share about cultural rights is the cultural education. Maputo has the largest number of public libraries, museums, art schools, and several other non-formal entities that allow access to cultural education. Another example is the cultural expression and inclusivity. Artists are allowed to freely express their creativity and identity through language, art, music, dance, and other forms of cultural expression, cases of Maputo street art, the artist movement, another movement called the Chuna Maputo, which is a collaboration between the municipality and a young artist and architect. His name is Sebastián Coana, who is very recently, I think the diplomatic, cultural diplomacy is working here. He has been awarded in France by the Divine Academy of Arts and Letters and Culture in France. Is a very proactive and talented artist who is painting murals involving unemployed young people, teaching painting and metalwork. And we have another example that we think that there is also a sensibility to ensure inclusivity and non-discrimination. This is another example of cultural rights for all individuals and communities regardless cultural background. Cases of FICA. FICA is a migrant communities festival. So this is another example that we could share about cultural rights. Going to access of information. The city had created Agenda Cultural, which is the cultural agenda, which enables access to information about cultural events, initiatives, and resources available within the municipality. Maputo has a network of public libraries which allow access to books, newspapers, and other informative documents in the neighborhoods. In terms of intellectual property rights, as an example of cultural rights, the city, Maputo City Council has a memorandum of understanding with SOMAS, the Mozambican Copyright Management Organization, to ensure protection of copyright. So this is the examples that we wanted to share with you about the cultural rights and all the involvement of Maputo municipality in this specific activity. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Oops.
Sorry for that.
No, sorry. Thank you, Isabel. And I believe the next speaker is coming in on a video link is Simone Zarat, the Secretaria de Cultura Santo André. So if we could line that up.
Meus cumprimentos aos participantes da 4ª Cumbre de Cultura de CGLU. Sou Simone Zarat, Secretária de Cultura de Santo André, São Paulo, Brasil. Em março de 2023, aplicamos na cidade o programa Cultura 21 Lab, coordenado pela Comissão de Cultura de CGLU. A autoavaliação das políticas culturais contou com a contribuição de diversas secretarias municipais e segmentos da sociedade civil em um processo curto, porém intenso e valoroso. Foi uma oportunidade de avaliação e de captação da percepção dos envolvidos, de alguma forma com os fazeres e quereres culturais. Constatamos que grande parte de nossas ações carecem de comunicação e, por outro lado, que deixamos de atuar suficientemente em temas importantes para os tempos contemporâneos, como, por exemplo, o meio ambiente. Agora temos em mãos pistas de fortalezas e fragilidades de nossas políticas culturais, de suas interfaces com outras políticas públicas e de suas relações com a Agenda 2030. E dessa forma, nosso planejamento pode ser feito com mais segurança e precisão, no sentido de reconfigurar ou aperfeiçoar rotas, além de termos em mãos elementos importantes para a revisão de nosso plano decenal de cultura e para o programa Santo André 500 anos, planejamento transversal e de longo prazo para a cidade. Cultura 21 Ações é um documento de fundamental importância e é ainda pouco lido e praticado pelas gestões públicas de cultura no Brasil. Nele conseguimos visualizar pistas para a tão discursada transversalidade da cultura e sua contribuição à sustentabilidade. E o C21 Lab nos aproxima da prática, nos mostra
that. I'd now like to call on Ramiro Palares, who's the Chief Advisor for the Department for Culture for the City of Montevideo. If you want to come up, or do you want to, up to yourself?
¿Desde
You're
aquí?
going to stay there? Yeah.
Ah.
Super.
Sigo desde aquí, I will speak in Spanish.
And I'm going to set a timer. Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Ramiro Payares. I'm from Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay. Montevideo is a capital city which has approximately 1 million inhabitants, about 50% of the population of the whole country. So it is the big metropolis in our territory. And it has concentrated services in education that have a big impact on the rest of the country, but very much concentrated in the capital. We have a long tradition, a liberal Republican tradition in our country, with cultural policies that go back more than 100 years. In general terms, our cultural policies have been very important in the history of our country. Throughout the 20th century, we had a separation of church and state, with a reconfiguration of the culture within Latin America, where the Catholic Church is very important in so many countries in cultural policy. And we became a lay country, a secular country, with, yes, we have a type of saint, and that is in the area of football, not a religious sense, but other people that we look up to and idolize somewhat in the sporting arena. And this change brought other cultural changes from a very early stage, like divorce. If a woman wanted divorce, she could ask for divorce. Women got the vote in the second decade of the 20th century. These social progresses, social advances, had a lot to do with our lay liberal setup in the country, and brought us to focus on gender rights, sexual rights, reproductive rights, inclusion, and civic rights in general. And so in Montevideo, we have faced resistance, of course, in these social areas, but we think it's very important to understand some of our actions and resistance based on this history and this specific context. In Montevideo, we still have a marked hegemony between traditional culture as a central component of our culture, and there is a strong community component. And in the center of the city, there are the population is very much involved in the active and dynamic culture. Finally, I'd like to comment that the aspect of gender and the resistance to affirmative action in the area of gender. And what have we done about that? We have had particular projects. We have emphasized the decentralization since the 1990s, recognizing in all areas of culture, employment, and training. We approved the Artists' Law, and that covers everything to do with employment and social the social security for workers, for employees, health provision, and so on. And the gender perspective is applied in specific projects, in programs which look at equity and equality. We have a cultural information office for all citizens. So in summary, I'd like to focus on one experience. I'm looking at my time here. I'm going over time, but talking about governance in community centres on the outskirts of the city, we have seen contributions in 3 community centres where we have had co-management with citizens of the centres in health, culture and sports, in marginalised areas with vulnerable communities where there is a threat of there's a greater drug problem. And the co-management in these centres with citizens and support from technical areas as well. The joint decision-making and participation with sufficient funds assigned has helped in working against social issues in those marginalised, vulnerable districts, working in areas of health and well-being for the communities, cultural activities, we work from the centre of the city towards the periphery, but also we work on developing and giving those communities a voice and allowing them to participate actively and encouraging them to do so. This all generates issues in terms of human resources, investment. We have to provide the necessary resources, and politicians have to react to what we're listening to, what we're receiving from those citizens. There is resistance, but we're working well to increase the positivity of the civic reactions. And so these are very real challenges. We're working on healthy and solid housing and to reduce the problems of drug addiction and drug trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramiro. And I know we'll be opening the session up for some discussion, but first I would like to invite the UN Special Rapporteur on Cultural Rights, Alexandra Zanthaki, if she'd stick her hand up, and you have a microphone. That's super.
Hello again. So I've been asked to ask you some questions, and I was very interested in all your talks, and I found them fascinating how you deal with current challenges. So in my mind, there are 2 main challenges coming out of what you were saying. So the United Nations is very clear that sustainable development is very much about leave no one behind. So I was wondering, we heard a lot about Montevideo on this, but I was wondering how this works in Mozambique and in the other places. When Maputo has 70% of the people live in slums, how do you ensure that you leave no one behind. What are the measures that the council are doing? Also, Dublin, the tourism. Dublin is such a touristic city for good reason, has so many people coming. So how do you draw a balance between the more traditional, if you wish, Irish ways of life that some Dubliners would like to, maintain as it is, and then the newcomers, be it tourists or refugees and migrants that come and want to push towards maybe other directions, and this, especially when it comes to tourism, is also a question that I would like to ask Maputo. In Montevideo, but also in all the places we talked about, a very interesting dilemma that I have sometimes is what we do with artifacts that remind us, that represent the colonial era or that represent the past ruling elite that now we know have not been as honorable as we thought they were. And I know that in many cities and local governments in the world, this is a real struggle, definitely where I live in the UK. So and for good reason. So I wanted to ask you how, whether you face this in your city councils, and how you deal with that. So these are some of the questions that I would be very interested. Thank you.
Okay, as I suppose the host city, I'll jump in, and I think it's a very good question in terms of the balance between tourism and sort of native culture, and it's very delicate. What we've tried to do is switch our focus more towards, particularly in relation to public realm and the public space, is that if it's good for the citizen, it will be good for the tourist, as opposed to being tourist focused and the citizens suffer. So we're trying to change the narrative on that particular piece. So we're designing more for our citizens than our visitors. But I think when we all travel, we get a far better appreciation of you might say, a culture when the locals are happy. You know what I mean? It's an authentic experience that you're traveling to these different places. You don't want to be going to Zara and Next, and you can go there at home. So what does it make something special? And what we're doing then in terms of, I suppose, our society is relatively new to the multiculturalism space, and I think we can learn, and we are learning from the mistakes of others and our own mistakes. And we in the City Council have recently employed integration officers who are specific community focused integration officers, because we do have quite a lot of international protection seekers, as well as those coming from the Ukraine. So we tool up very quickly after the Ukraine invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So, it's an iterative process, but we are moving it, I suppose, slowly to make sure we get it right. So that's, I don't know if anybody from Maputo or...
Do you want to answer?
Okay, regarding Maputo, our policy is very inclusive, as I presented when providing the different examples of cultural rights. As I said, that's why all our programs are targeted to the neighborhoods, especially to young people. And I gave the example of different festivals that we normally host in our city, where communities are all involved, not only as artists, but they involved in providing services and goods for the festivals and other different events that we organize in our city. So the communities, wherever they live, they are part of the value chain, the productive value chain for culture in Maputo. Thank you.
Okay. Ramiro?
Bueno,
Well, in relation to the question on heritage from past elites, in the case of Montevideo, it has something to do with what I was saying about our Republican lay tradition that is part of our culture, our national identity. And in that sense, there's another element that's very important, which is that Montevideo, like Buenos Aires, is a city that at the start of the 20th century had a very clear presence of, or received many immigrants from Europe. And at that time, this idea of national identity was built. This idea of a lay Republican identity was established then. And so these are elements that have helped to build our society, a kind of a middle-class society in which traditionally we insisted on our presidents using public transport. A little while ago, we had a president who worked on the land, literally on a farm, very close to one of the cultural community centers I was talking about. So that's not such a problem for us because our historical narrative, the narrative of our identity is that we're a very young country with a limited number of inhabitants, and that has, in a sense, facilitated our avoiding those traditions that come from monarchies and the domination of the church and so on.
Unfortunately, yep, come on back in. Is there a mic?
Sorry, I forgot the last question. So the last question is, it's not so much a question as a target. Thank you very much. These are very good answers. So when I gave when I presented the report on sustainable development and cultural rights last October before the UN General Assembly, the most excellent question that I felt I had came from actually the EU, who said to me, how do we measure the implementation of cultural rights and culture? So in this respect, what UCLG are doing, this project that has 200 targets is, for me, is an amazing project that definitely has to, because we have to quantify what we mean by progress. So I was wondering whether the UCLG feels that they can expand and they can notify states and local governments to take action on the basis of these targets beyond the sample that very well you have implemented. So beyond is it 7 new cities that you're looking for? How can we make these targets spread, in all cities and in all local governments throughout the world?
L'objectif, I answer in French. L'objectif.
I'm going to answer in French if that's okay. The goal for us is that we're testing and co-creating the tool at present. As a result, we're aiming to be as close to reality and what's happening on the ground as possible. And that's why we're talking about co-creation, co-testing, and co-development so that we can change and modify the tool as much as possible. So that's why we're looking for 8 to 10 cities to work with us in 2024 so that the tool can be used as a framework by 2025 for any city that wants to participate.
In Irish parlance, I've got the shepherd's hook in that we're running over time. So I'd like to thank our speakers, Antoine, Isabel, Simone, who came in on video, and Ramiro. Thank you very much. And just while I have the stage and a microphone, I'd just like to thank my own team, both in the Culture Company, led by Isultan Tracy and the rest of the UCLG team.
Thank you.
For pulling together, I think, a very thoughtful and provocative programme. Many thanks. And I'll hand over to Antoine now, who might be better at timekeeping than I am.
Thank you, Mr. Shakespeare. Thank you. So I invite now the speakers of slot 2 to come to the stage, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please. Yeah, where you prefer. Enrique va a ser en el slot 3, after, después. Next, yes. Iñaki. Please. So we are following with our next slot. Thank you so much to be here with us. How cities are working to implement cultural rights of their inhabitants. We are going to start with Anna Sandberg. She is the vice chair of the cultural board of the city of Malmö. I don't know if you want to come here or to, you can sit in where you prefer.
I can stand over there.
Okay. So could you share with us what your city is doing to implement and to protect cultural rights of people?
Absolutely.
5 minutes, please.
Yes, I will keep the time, I promise.
And I am going to say one.
How do I switch picture? I just wave and somebody switch. Okay. Oh.
Just here.
Great. Hi, everyone. I am Hanna Sandberg, Vice Chair of the Culture Board of the City of Malmö in Sweden. I bring greetings from Malmö, one of UCLG's leading cities for Agenda 21 for Culture. I would like to thank the organizers of the 2023 UCLG Culture Summit for inviting me to contribute to this most important discussion on cultural rights. The saying goes, if you have seen Malmö, you have seen the world. And that is certainly true of the diversity in the city's population of 350,000 people, where 186 nationalities live side by side. With focus on this diversity, the Culture Board has adopted a policy of cultural rights for all, and our Culture Department works continually to translate that policy into reality. How do we do this? For instance, by finding new and innovative ways to involve Malmö citizens in not only enjoying cultural activities, but also shaping them. In this regard, we have placed special emphasis on the cultural rights of children and young people, and their talents and potential to help make Malmö's arts and culture more accessible, relevant, and contemporary. It is our aim and sincere hope going forward that even more Malmö citizens will feel that their lives, experience, and dreams are reflected in the city's cultural forums, including its public realm. We believe that the whole city is a monument to our shared history, a way to think newly and broadly about the contemporary culture and our cultural heritage. For our institutions, this has meant changing their methodology, engaging underrepresented groups and listening to their voices, having our established norms criticized and challenged, and adopting an open approach to collaboration with civil societies as well as the independent cultural sector. In a time of political extremism, when artistic and cultural freedom is under threat in Sweden, just as it is throughout the world, we feel it is particularly important for the public organizations to meet and counteract currents of hate and fear. In Malmö, this has resulted, amongst other initiatives, in the Culture Board receiving an ongoing assignment from the city leaders to promote culture which combats Islamophobia and Afrophobia. This work sits alongside the city's well-established programs and practices to combat anti-Semitism and anti-Roma racism. As well as lifting anti-racist art and culture into the foreground, the assignment also entails educating ourselves and our staff, and collaborating widely to draw expertise from local, national, and international level. And for many years, Malmö has been a city of refuge for persecuted artists and writers. And in 2020, in collaboration with the organizations ICON and Swedish PEN, we opened the David Isaac Library, the world's first and only international collection of banned literature available to the public. David Isaac is an Eritrean-Swedish author and journalist who has been imprisoned without trial in Eritrea for more than 2 decades. His case emphasized the significance of the library, which continuously holds activities focusing on issues related to anti-discrimination, cultural rights, and the importance of democracy. And we want to advance this important work. As of last week, we arranged for the first time a citywide Forbidden Culture Week dedicated to increasing awareness of the limitations on artistic freedom in the world, but also in our own everyday lives. Hence, Malmö has a proud history of promoting cultural rights and freedom of expression. Nevertheless, we can always be better, including learning from others. In this regard, we are delighted to have access to the network and support of the UCLG Culture Committee and its Secretariat. And we are equally delighted to be able to share Malmö's experience of promoting cultural rights, both the positive and the less positive, with our sister cities in the UCLG Worldwide Network. We are especially interested in making contact with cities who are working with or want to work similar questions: inclusion, anti-racism, and freedom of expression. So please take the opportunity to approach me and my team from Malmö these days. That's all I had to say from Malmö. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. 5 minutes, wonderful. We are going to keep going on with Bilbao, the city of Bilbao. Let me introduce to you Iñaki López de Aguileta. He is the Director for Culture of the city of Bilbao in País Vasco, Spain. Iñaki, do you want to share some good practices or difficulties you have in your city to implement the cultural right? I know you're very famous in Bilbao for the work you're doing in culture, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's an honor and privilege for me to be in this marvelous city of Dublin, representing Bilbao at this Culture Summit. There are many ties between Ireland and the Basque Country. We are two countries, each with a strong personality, with a deep-rooted cultural identity. So coming from Bilbao, I feel at home in Dublin. Thank you so much for the invitation. But let's go to the questions. As you know, Bilbao is a good example of the use of culture as a tool to transform a city. During the 80s of the last century, and due to economic crisis, we were forced to reinvent ourselves. And culture played a key role in that reinvention. Building the Guggenheim Museum was the flagship, was the symbol of the new Bilbao. However, in Bilbao, our commitment to culture is not only for its ability to generate economic returns and image. We are making the case for culture as a citizen right and as a value in itself. We don't consider art and culture to be mere objects of contemplation in a museum. We believe culture to be a way of life. We believe that culture is necessary for us, and that culture makes us better people, better cities, better countries. It's a citizen right, and therefore local government has a duty to make it possible. But cultural rights cannot be achieved in a day. We have to go a long way, and this requires long-term strategies. To that end, in our case, we have approved the Bilbao's Strategic Plan for Culture 2023-2033. That is our roadmap for the coming decade. In its preparation, more than 600 people have taken part, including artists, cultural industries, policy makers and citizens. And defending cultural rights is certainly one of the pillars of the plan. The strategic plan includes more than 100 actions, but it's not by chance that its first paragraphs speak on cultural rights. The plan embraces the Mundial the 2022 final declaration and reiterates our commitment to the Agenda 21 of culture and to a cultural goal in the SDGs in line with the UCLG. And from the practical perspective, the strategic plan contains numerous actions to democratize access to culture. To begin, culture is taken to be an integrating factor between the different neighborhoods of the city and underpins the decentralization of cultural activities. We try to take culture to all the neighborhoods and not just to the city center, with activities that are largely free and in the public space and seeking to break down access barriers. The implementation of audience plans with a special focus on young people and the use of new communication strategies are other channels for cultural rights to be effectively exercised. Well, will we manage to comply with the strategic plan for culture? What challenges do we face? Well, what we know is that there are at least two conditions to implement the plan. The first is to have sufficient resources. Culture is intangible, but in contrast, cultural policy has to be very tangible. It has to take the form of specific realities, facilities, programs, budgets, jobs. It's often said that money cannot buy happiness, but it helps. But the same token, money is not everything in cultural policy, but it's rather helpful, you know what I mean. Cultural rights cannot be achieved without an adequate budget, without resources. In Bilbao, we cannot complain about our cultural budget, and we hope that does not change. And the second condition to put the plan into practice is knowing that we cannot advance if we are alone. The city councils needs the cooperation of many other stakeholders, the other administration, the private sector, the association, and of course the citizens. When we all pull together in the same direction, we are capable to going far, very far. And to finish, the title of this panel is a High Impact Partnership for Cultural Rights. For the promotion of cultural rights, you can always count on Bilbao. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Iñaki. Very, very interesting also presentation. We are going on with South Korea now. I invite the Professor Byung-Eun Jung, professor in the Gyeongsang National University and UNESCO Creative City of Craft and Folk Art in Jeju City. Jeju is also a leading city of the Agenda 21 for Culture and was the first city in experimenting this new tool, the Cultural 21 Plus. So the floor is yours. Can you share with us your experience in cultural right and in implementing these tools?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Byung-Eun Jung. I am the focal point of Jeju, which is a UNESCO Creative City and the leading city of UCLG. I am honored to be presenting at the UCLG Cultural Summit in Dublin, the hometown of my favorite 18th century Irish philosopher, Edmund Burke. I would like to thank Juridipa School and the city of Dublin for inviting me here. Today, I would like to share with you the efforts of Jeju to improve cultural rights in its achievements and challenges. Jeju has participated in the UCLG Cultural Committee's Pilot City program to learn through Cultural 21 action for 3 years since April 2019. Jeju has been participating in the Leading City program since July of this year. Following UCLG proposal, Jeju City introduced the Culture and Art Delivery Project to promote cultural rights of citizens, including rural residents and vulnerable groups. The Cultural and Art Delivery Program refers to an event where local residents receive, view, and enjoy the cultural and artistic product they want, where and when they want. Here, artist art delivery presupposes some kind of right of residence. That right is cultural right. Starting in 2020, local artists and performers formed performance troupes and visited underprivileged area of the city and the facilities related to the underprivileged and conducted performing arts program, including traditional and modern arts. Despite the pandemic caused by COVID-19, Jeonju City held twice in 2020, 3 times in 2021, and 5 times in 2022. As you see here on the radar, comparing self-assessment in 2019 and 2022, Jeonju showed meaningful changes in 4 of the 9 implementation goals contained the Cultural 21 action. This shows.
Do you want to move the slides? Maybe?
Okay, thank you. This one.
Do you want me to move it?
Okay.
Or you do it?
Okay, let me. In particular, scores improved significantly in the area of cultural right. This shows that the cultural policy implemented by Jeonju City over the past 3 years has contributed to improving the cultural right of citizens. When we implemented the cultural policy, we had the belief that if cultural rights, creativity, and the cultural diversity are the 3 keywords that express the philosophical foundation of a creative city, cultural rights are foundation of the other 2 concepts. But securing cultural right does not imply the emergency of creativity. This is because cultural rights are propositions about value and justification, whereas propositions about creativity are about fact and existence. Therefore, I believe that programs improve cultural rights should be accompanied by programs of developing creativity. Only in that case, this makes cultural diversity possible. I will talk about the Cultural 21 Plus shortly. Last July, we had a workshop with the Cultural 21 Plus. We found that the content of Cultural 21 Plus is very similar with the content of Mondial Declaration 2022. Especially, both documents emphasize the importance of cultural right and the role of it in the sustainable development of cities. We found that in the workshop, what policies and programs citizens of Jeonju are interested to implement in next few years. Jeonju City has set the goal of establishing and revitalization the local cultural ecosystem, which is taken from Cultural 21 Plus in detail. For the next 4 years, from 2024 to 2027. Jeonju has set 3 areas for its cultural policy in the next 4 years, focusing on cultural rights, synergy between education and culture, and the cultural economy as outlined in the Cultural 21 Plus. Especially, Jeonju will introduce programs to strengthen the rights of artists, cultural professions, and practitioners with the aim of promoting cultural rights. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this so valuable example of how cities implement and protect cultural rights. But also, national governments also act. And we have now with us Kristin Danielsson from Norway. She's the Director of Arts and Culture Norway and Chair at IFACA. Could you explain and share with us how Norway implements cultural rights and what are you doing in this field?
I would love to. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and good people from local governance and cities all over the world. I would like to start with thanking you for inviting me, as I am a national or international representative. My organization is called Culture and Arts Norway, which is the national arts agency in Norway. And I may also offer a perspective that is slightly different to some of your cities. Having said that, Norway is a pretty small country. So I also know that we are maybe a tenth of the size of some of the cities that you represent. I am also the chair of IFACA, International Federation of Arts Councils and Cultural Agencies, so I am wearing many hats. I would like to offer some perspectives on how we work on safeguarding and implementing cultural rights on a national level. And I love the word that you presented also, that we also work on a national level. And I would like to argue that if we are to safeguard cultural rights and implement cultural rights, it cannot happen in one level. It needs to happen everywhere, all at once. Norway signed the United Nations Act on Financial, Social and Cultural Rights in 1968, and it was ratified in 1972. So it's an integrated part of our legal system. We also have a separate cultural act in Norway, which I know some nations have, some cities have. And we are working on revising it also this year. It's an important act. It aims to define the responsibility to promote and facilitate a wide range of cultural activity so that everyone has access to diverse cultural expressions. Please note the word everyone and access. This act recognizes culture as a public responsibility, and it also echoes the Mondial Cult 2022 declaration that has been quoted already twice this day, that culture is a public good. So you can use this act. It raises the status of culture in all public administrations, and it has also strengthened the arguments for investing in culture throughout the country. Like my friend from Bilbao, money isn't everything, but it certainly helps. So I would like to argue that legal framework really matters, but we need more than that. Norway is a quite young nation. I also feel very much at home in Ireland. We were independent in 1905, so we have been building a cultural structure very gradually. Since the 70s and 80s, we've had a separate ministry. My organization was established in 1965, and throughout the country, last 50 years, we have built a strong infrastructure so that culture can actually take place. Because if we want everyone to have access, we also need places for that to happen. So that's an interesting parameter if we want to safeguard and implement cultural rights. Finally, we also have strong national cultural policies, which is my job to implement. I would like to say three things about national cultural policies. It's about access for all. It's about diversity and inclusion. And it is, in Norway, a very integral part safeguarding freedom of expression and artistic freedom. We have a vision in Arts and Culture Norway, which is to have a society rich in culture and arts. And You may not all know where Norway even is, but you may have heard about Norway as a certainly rich nation in natural resources. My argument is that our true capital and our true richness is our culture and artistic expressions. That's our wealth. So this is where I can also echo UN Special Rapporteur Alexandra Sentaki, because she said yesterday something very important when we are working with cultural rights. We need to talk about cultural rights as in acknowledging all culture. It's our ways of life, she said, it's our values. And I need to make sure that we all agree on that, because it's a very important tool when we are implementing cultural rights, no matter where you are from. So I have answered the initial question on how Norway implements and safeguards cultural rights, but no country without challenges, and I'd like to share just a few to start the conversation. As we have stated, culture is a public good, and it's a public responsibility, which means that everyone should have access to public funding. But then we're back at Sentaki's point, how do we define culture? How we defined it in 1965 is not necessarily how we will define it in 2023 and beyond. So these are things that we are grappling with. We need to make sure that in our programs and grant systems and policies, everyone has access. It's not necessarily like that today. For instance, Norway has not so nice history of treating our Sami population, our indigenous people. And we need to make sure that now we have a Truth and Reconciliation Act that came in June this year, that we include all Sami expressions when we define culture as ways of life. Secondly, I want to say it's very practical work with implementing and safeguarding cultural rights. We all know that policies are great, legal framework is absolutely necessary, but it comes down to practical work on an everyday basis. So my final point is that if we are to safeguard and implement, we need to work together, because it is also implemented on a national level. International framework makes nations accountable. And in our strategy, we really want to strengthen the collaboration and have equal partnerships with all tiers of government. If we are to succeed, we need to work very closely together on a national, regional, and local level. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this very interesting presentation. We are opening a moment for question and answer, but before that, I would invite the cities of Lisbon and Mexico City also. We've heard about Jinju, who experimented the new, this new framework, the Cultural 21 Plus, and also we had a workshop in Lisbon and in Mexico City. So if you could share with us your experience.
Yes. Hello. We were very happy
Can you introduce yourself, Alexandra,
sorry,
please?
Alexandra Sabino from Lisbon. I'm an advisor to the Deputy Mayor for Culture. So, as I was saying, we were really happy to be able to contribute for this new instrument. We've been working with the UCLG since 2015, and we were a pilot city, and now we are a leading city. We did the workshop, the 21 actions, and it was very useful. We did it in the first time with external stakeholders, then with internal stakeholders, and that is to say that we tried to disseminate the word, and it was very helpful because we were able to self-evaluate, and also, like Alexandra was saying, to evaluate and to measure what we were doing. In the Culture 21 Plus, it certainly is an update. And we decided to do this with the administration of the boroughs. And this is very important because we wanted to work at several levels, so at the municipal level and with the different boroughs. We have 24, and not always they are not always aligned with us. They are doing different things and not always thinking of the bigger purpose or cultural rights, prosperity, sustainable development. And this tool really helps to understand the several measures that we can take and new ideas also. Actually, from this workshop, several ideas were, we came up with several ideas, and we already have a meeting scheduled for January, and we hope to continue this work. Thank you.
Obrigado, Alexandra. La Ciudad de México, allá al fondo. Keila.
The City of Mexico. Good afternoon. I am from the Secretariat of Culture in the City of Mexico, in Mexico City. In September, we had a workshop, and that was very valuable. We have over 20 million people in Mexico City and different levels of government, and it was very interesting for us to see how the different levels of government could work together and coordinate. We have the central government, federal government, and local government with 16 different districts that work independently of one another. And it was very important for us to see how we could coordinate the different levels of government and work with associations of civil society, with legislators, with people who have the money, with private initiatives. So something that personally I found very important, we can work with civil servants who haven't always worked in the area of culture or tourism or sports or leisure, and it was a very important way for them to understand sustainable development and how to work together in a practical way to really see practical things, not just look at the Sustainable Development Goals in a theoretical way. And they had never understood that culture is not just about kind of formal culture, fine art, but also the vision of the world. It's a way of looking at the world and understanding the world, and how they could put this idea of culture into practice. Someone said to me, I didn't know that natural resources had anything to do with culture. But that vision is becoming more widespread in Mexico now, that culture embraces everything, that the citizens of Mexico City also need to understand that. And we need to think about how we can generate that sustainable development that we all want to achieve. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for those words. It's very exciting and very emotional to be working on those tools with you.
10 minutes for question. If you have some question to our speakers, please, short question, 1 minute per person. Do not take the stage, just a question. I don't know if someone wish to ask. Yes?
I have a question in relation to the Culture 21 Plus and where the Rome Charter sits within that. Because it seems to me the Rome Charter was such an innovation and required some more development of practice sites to see how is the Rome Charter implemented. And I just have the question, you know, what happens to the Rome Charter as an instrument in relation to local development? And as a little side to that question, I also want to ask, you know, this focus on participation as a word, you know, you feel over and over again that this promotion of participation has become a very bald term in terms of cultural rights. And that's why I think something like the Rome Charter has such more efficacy in terms of developing a more, I don't know, a perspective that has more mandate and more traction.
Thank you. We are going to take all the questions, and after we answer. Another question? Yes.
Hi, my name is Yang Guanbian, a PhD student from University of Warwick. I have two questions. The first one is, in your opinion, how well accepted is the concept of cultural rights among your citizens? And the second one is, do you think, I hope not, but if your city's current dominant political power were changed, do you think the cultural right initiatives in your city can be continued? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, more questions? Okay, one last question.
Hi, my name is Yari Kamara. My question's similar to the question that was just asked. So hearing about the Truth and Reconciliation Act that was passed in Norway with regards to the Sami, it made me think of, well, okay, we're living in polarized societies, looking at a country like the US and all that backlash against anti-wokeism. So what do we do about the cultural rights of people who are intolerant?
Thank you. Thank you. I let you answer the question with 1 minute each speaker. I just going to answer the first question about the Rome Charter. We are integrating the Rome Charter in the new instrument. The objective is not to rebuild everything, is to keep going on. So we integrate the Cult 121 action, we integrate Rome Charter. We are seeking to integrate all the instruments were used and built by cities, so we can have a new framework for the future. I don't know if I answer to your question. Thank you. So 2 minutes per speakers? Yes.
I'll just give it a go. The last question on cultural rights for the, what was the expression? People who are intolerant. That's a brilliant question, and it's a very tricky one because we have been focusing very much on cultural rights for the groups that have normally been left out. So it's a good question. I think the only answer to that is to keep being tolerant. And I strongly believe that in the culture sector, that's where people who disagree can still meet. It's almost the only place we still have, isn't it? We disagree politically, financially, religiously, but we need to make sure, as we run our arts organizations and our democratic institutions, we need to be extremely open and also make sure that intolerant people are able to say what they mean, but they should also be nuanced and challenged, but we cannot cancel them. And I think for your question, the PhD student from Warwick, I don't think the population of Norway in general are very knowledgeable about their cultural rights as such, but they will be very interested in their cultural territories. And I think if you ask people around the world whether they are cultural consumers, they may say no, but they still have rich cultural lives. And this is back to my point of we need to define culture as ways of life in everything we do, in all our values, not how we did it in the 16th century in Central Europe.
Yeah, and what about the intolerant people? Maybe it's not a popular opinion, but I think that intolerant people have the right to culture. Intolerant people have the right to education, have the right to have a job, have the right to social services, and have the right to culture. Maybe that can be the way to change their minds.
Thank you.
It is most important to make citizens aware that they have cultural rights. But it is not easy to make those who have not been participating in cultural activity aware of cultural rights. So I think this should be instilled through the cultural art education, starting from elementary and middle and high school. So Edmund Burke thought it is better that change in the perception of right occur gradually. So I think the synergy between education and culture is also necessary to expand cultural right. That is my answer to her.
Thank you. Anna?
Yes. Great questions. They are so tricky to answer in a small amount of time. When I'm thinking about my city, Malmö, it's a very bold city. We're brave, and I think cultural and the cultural rights are in our blood. If any of you have ever visited us, you're most welcome, I have to say. You will soon realize that we have this kind of brave and bold way of living there, and culture is everywhere. And so I think you said some interesting things here. Where should I start? I just wrote a lot of things down. If we start how well accepted cultural rights is in our cities, I think it is quite accepted. But as some of you said, I don't think everyone knows it is their cultural rights. I don't think they always know they are participating in a cultural activity or something like that. And we have a challenge to educate people in what cultural rights are and where culture is. I think of one, we did a survey where we asked, do you participate in Malmö's cultural life? And about 70% said they did. But when we asked, do you regularly visit a library? 96% said they did. And I think that's something very interesting in that you don't know that you're participating in something that is a cultural way, a cultural institution. And about intolerance, I think you said it so well. I think intolerant people must be tolerated. And I think freedom of speech and freedom of expression also includes the ones you don't agree with. And our way of meeting, because Malmö, as I said, it's a bold city, we have a lot of strong opinions in different ways. They don't always agree, very seldom. But we need to make these people meet and discuss, and that's where we work a lot. Meeting places, accessible meeting places, where we can discuss the questions, where we can answer these topics that's often very, very difficult to handle. So my answer to how we should handle people that are intolerant is to be tolerant and to remember that if we start to back off the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech, we're doing the exact same thing as they are doing and they are promoting. And we should never do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we can make an applause. Thank you so much for sharing your practices, your policy in your city. I want to congratulate you for the wonderful job you are doing. We are going on with the next slot, the last one. The last one, the day is almost ended, so I invite you to go down, and now I invite our three last speakers. Enhorabuena. Thank you. Congratulations. I invite our three last speakers to come on the stage. Keila Castrejón de la Ciudad de México, Enrique Abogadro de Buenos Aires, and Anthony Flynn of Dublin. please. Hola, ¿qué tal? Ahora sí. Donde quieran. We are going to switch in Spanish. Vamos a hablar ahora español.
Now we're going to speak in Spanish because we're going to be presenting the award that has been organized by Mexico City. Welcome, Kayla.
New edition of the International Award, el premio organizado por...
This award has been organized by Mexico City together with the Culture Committee. It's the 6th edition of the award. So we had already 5 editions. In the first one, back in 2014, you see those that won the awards of these wonderful projects and cities. We have no time, so I'm not going to mention all of them, but you can see them on the screen, and I want to say congratulations for having received this wonderful award. In the last edition, we had 2 cities that received the award, Dublin City and Buenos Aires. So I would like to invite you all to briefly share with us your winning projects. And then I'll give the floor to Mexico City to have the official opening of the 6th edition of the award.
Being acting assistant chief executive of the Dublin City Council, would you share with us the project with the one you won the award in the last edition?
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'll be very, very brief, but I'd like to acknowledge everybody for coming to our city and I suppose recognizing the launch of the international award, the UCLG Mexico City Culture 21. What this means to Dublin is absolutely fantastic. In 2022, UCLG awarded Dublin City Council the prestigious Global Award for Culture Engagement. This international award recognised the work of Dublin City Council and its culture company for their innovative responses to providing creative and cultural opportunities in Dublin. The Global Award marked recognition of the investment Dublin City Council has made establishing and supporting its culture company. The focus on work that at its heart is about culture, rights, placing people at the centre of all of its actions. Dublin won the overall Global Award for Cultural Engagement for its AWE programme, which is a new model of connecting people with culture through accessibility, well-being and evidence. The 3 strands of AWE are accessibility, which is the question of how people find, share and participate in the activities of the culture company. Well-being. Could culture participation support increased well-being at a time, and it was a difficult time for the globe and every global nation and every global city during the pandemic, when all frontline services were under immense pressure and the mental and physical health of the wider population was at risk from infection, enforced isolation, social distancing, and the closure of many community and cultural services. Evidence as a cultural participation impacts how connected people felt to their neighbourhoods and the city. Now we wanted to learn what role it could play at this extremely challenging time, and in turn how best culture can contribute to our post-pandemic recovery. The approach used throughout the AWE strands was of continuous collaboration. Listen to learn what is important to people, then in response, programme culture in the local areas based on what is heard, test new models and activities, and finally maintain communications to ensure that work stays relevant and of interest to the people of Dublin City. The qualitative research element examined community-based projects undertaken by a range of Dublin City Council works departments and sections, such as parks, landscapes and biodiversity, our climate action office, our community and social development offices, sports, arts, culture, libraries, archaeology, heritage, where culture is an integral element of project methodology. Over the last few days, you will have seen examples of this work throughout the UCLG Pilot Cities Learning. Visits to 14 Henrietta Street on Monday, the screening of Home Truths as part of the opening session yesterday. People-centred cultural programme remains of core importance to Dublin's provision for culture in the city. The international recognition of UCLG Global Award to Dublin confirmed that focusing on cultural rights in communities and neighbourhoods has significant impact and benefit to the work of Dublin City Council. We will continue this focus on culture across the work of the Council and the new cultural strategies that we are preparing. Dublin hopes to continue to innovate and inspire the members of UCLG network through cultural lives and its people. And just to finalise, I do sincerely hope that you will enjoy the rest of your visit to Dublin, and I hope that you will experience our Dublin City Winter Lights Festival tonight as you walk through the city on your visits to different locations. What you will see is a number of iconic landmarks lit up with art, which was commissioned by the Council to enable artists and communities participate in promoting their work in public spaces to be enjoyed by Dubliners and visitors to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations. Invito ahora a...
I would like to invite Enrique Aborrado, Minister for Culture in Buenos Aires, if he can tell us about the winning project, please.
Maybe, yeah, thank you. So I start in Spanish and then I switch to English. Quería felicitar a la ciudad de México.
I would like to congratulate Mexico City for this initiative that we are celebrating here today. For the city of Buenos Aires, it's an honor having been part of the call and having given the award in this wonderful city of Mexico. So congratulations as well to UCLG for this initiative. And the speaker moves to English.
Colleagues in Dublin, not only for organizing this wonderful event, but also for winning the award. I'm going to be very brief. I actually want to use my 5 minutes, so I'm doing that. And this is a very practical experience that we are sharing. It's called Abasto Barrio Cultural, and we won the award because of this program. It might be small in the sense that it's not a citywide policy, but for us it's really important because it's a practical example of how actual culture can be useful in the last mile, in the relationship between city governments and its citizens. Abasto, as you will know, it's one of the neighborhoods in the city of Buenos Aires. I think this should move forward, and this should, okay. Maybe I'm being too anxious about this. Or you are doing this, I'm not sure who is moving it. I need help, yes, definitely. Because it's kind of beautiful, you know, so I would love to share it with the audience. Anyway. No funciona. Okay, it's not working. It can happen. There you go, okay. Probably it's going slowly. But anyway, Abasto is a neighborhood in the city of Buenos Aires, a city well known for its culture, arts and culture. It's all around our city. Buenos Aires is really amazing. It's in some cases it's unique. We are the city in the whole world with more bookstores per capita in the whole world. And we also have more than 500 independent cultural venues, very small music venues, theaters, cultural centers, and other art-related organizations. That's why we devised a strategy catered towards the independent cultural scene. 5 years ago, gracias. 5 years ago, we launched a new law that provides a framework for all these very small organizations and makes it very easy for them to work within our city. And the Ministry of Culture is basically their ally against the rest of the government, who might be willing to close them or control them. And we are on the side of these very small cultural venues, working hand in hand with them, and of course with our colleagues in other areas in government, to let them know that we care. So that's why we launched this strategy. Abasto, it's one of the neighborhoods. It is the neighborhood with a larger presence of independent cultural venues, but also a very large history related to culture. Tango, Carlos Gardel, lived in this neighborhood, and also the new rock Argentinian scene in the early 80s after the dictatorship was also very strong in this neighborhood. And now it's a place where you can find all these independent cultural venues everywhere. So we started working with them in a horizontal conversation with the idea basically of bringing them all together into strengthening the cultural identity of this neighborhood, working with the local population and make them aware that they live in this neighborhood and they are nearby and they live near all these independent cultural venues, and basically rethinking the public realm through culture and using the public realm to get people outside of their houses and onto the streets. Because more security is not only more policemen, it's basically more people on the streets celebrating and getting in touch with each other in the public realm, where democracy basically builds up, you know, because it's a place of everyone and anyone. And the program, it's constantly organizing activities on the streets, but basically who are running the program are all these independent cultural organizations alongside the city government. We are running several projects and including also bars and restaurants. We are commissioning theater plays, theater work that walk around the neighborhood. So we're taking culture out of this, and onto the streets. We are running also innovation laboratories where we are, sorry, this is all in Spanish, but I can share after this some information in English that I brought with me. But basically, we are running innovation laboratories and several other projects. I'm sorry because it's a complete mess. It's my fault. But anyway, finishing, I would say this. It was really difficult for our government to be able to work hand in hand with these organizations on a horizontal basis because we needed to bring them on the table, and not always what they were willing to say was nice for us, you know, because these are very fiercely independent organizations. But we learned a lot working with them. And what we tried to build is a program that will be there in the future, even if future governments are not willing to continue with this kind of policies. Because what we did is we strengthened the conversation, and local organizations, we empowered them to be in charge of the program. Thank you very much, y gracias de nuevo a México y a CGLU por este premio.
And thank you to Mexico and to UCLG for the award. Thank you very much.
Now, the City of Mexico, Keila Castrejón, de la Secretaría de Cultura de la Ciudad de México.
Of the Keila Castrejón of the Secretariat of Culture in Mexico City. I'm afraid we only have 4 minutes now. Vale, iré rapidito. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to the wonderful UCLG team. And I'm going to start.
Recently appointed as the World Best City for Culture by Time Out and recognized for its wide array of cultural life and activities offered to its citizens and visitors, Mexico City has constantly developed policies and partnerships that fosters this strong accessibility to high-quality cultural activities and cultural rights. In this framework, it is my pleasure being here to present the UCLG Mexico City Culture 21 International Award Nowadays, a reference and an incentive for us cultural community among many cities in the world. It has become one of the biggest prizes given to cities and leaders who have significantly contributed to culture, as Akiri mentioned, for sustainable development. For us at Mexico City government, it's a priority the strengthening of international cultural cooperation and the establishment of bilateral work among cities and local governments. The recognition of good cultural practices as one of our spinal strategies for society and individual development is fundamental for us at Mexico City government. In this 6th edition, we are seeking to set the lights on initiatives that answers to Culture 21 Plus proposals to recognize policies, programs, and innovative projects rewarding the local and regional government performances that promotes replicability of cultural practices in support of people, government, and our planet. Replicability is the key word. This call will have 6 basic categories, but it's not limited to, and local governments and cities around the world are invited to present innovative practices within common public assets, community cultural development, shared development and prosperity, sustainable and inclusive planning of territory, environment and planet protection, and finally, governance and cultural cooperation. In this edition, we are looking forward to bring examples of policies and practices with positive effects that improve the life of people and shape the cities of the future. We're hoping to receive more than 100 great quality applications in the city category from capital cities and local governments around the globe, not just to set new records, but also to keep establishing a learning network between local governments through the Good Practices Observatory. Today, cities are the closest benchmarks of cultural inclusion and must be from local, where the biggest efforts should be made to consolidate the good practices and the creation of possibilities that would place culture as a key factor for human development and a fundamental basis for sustainable development. Mexico City government, as an active member and co-chair of Cultural Commission of UCLG, reiterate our commitment to recognize the best practices and programs in cultural rights fields, locating the cities as a fundamental actors for social changing and the construction of future scenarios. We are all doing great things at home. It is important to replicate them. Yesterday, you employed a word that I love, that is tropicalizar. These ideas are valuable to take them and apply them at home. This prize will let us spread all these ideas that can be properly explained in 5 minutes, these 5 wonderful minutes. But we need to learn more. We need to know more about the things that you are doing in Uruguay, the things that you're doing in Buenos Aires, in Malmo. We all need to know more. And that is why it is important to apply to this call, to inspire other cities to consider all these other wonderful ideas about heritage, about gender, about well-being. Please, it's important that you understand, that you get inspired. Your ideas are precious. Culture is totally based on international cooperation, so let us place the light where it should be placed. It is not fair for us because we can apply, but we will be very happy to receive you at Mexico City at the end of July. Thank you very much.
Gracias, thank you. Thank you, indeed. This is so important award. We have, thanks to the award, a huge database of more than 350 good practices of how we can link culture to citizenship and sustainable development. So the award is opened. The application form is on our website, so you can fulfill right now if you want to apply. I want to thank our speakers. Thank you so much. We are ending the day. I know we have some activities right now. Maybe Tracy is coming to explain what's the next move and where we are going now. A big applause for our speakers and congratulations. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Okay. It's been a long day, and I know some of you are probably a little bit tired, but outside in the foyer are my colleagues from the Culture Company, and they are ready to take you off in small groups on an adventure of cultural delight. Everything from the exhibition of Andy Warhol to the National Theatre and the Quare Fellow, the play by Brendan Behan, the collection of the Chester Beatty Library, which, for those whose feet are sore, is literally only 5 minutes across the way. And there'll be a Cayley in Richmond Barracks and a Bowron workshop. There are buses and the team who will take you and guide you through the city. You'll see, as Tony mentioned earlier, the Festival of Winter Lights, which is across all of the public buildings in the city. So when you go outside the door, you will find my colleagues ready and waiting for you. And we will be leaving. There are buses that will start to leave from pretty much immediately from now until I think about 6:45. So if you find the person who is looking after the activity that you've chosen, they will tell you the exact time that you need to leave. Okay, and enjoy yourselves, have a good time. Those who are going Cayley dancing, mind your feet, because it's not uncommon that people come back with trodden on toes. And we'll see you all in the morning, bright and early at 9 a.m. Thanks very much.
Hello. Let me have your attention for 30 seconds more. Tomorrow we have 2 workshops here from 9 to 10:40 and then from 11:15 to 12:30. At 12:30, 2 workshops here, 2 in the Radisson Hotel. At 12:30, we are going to take a picture of us all with a prop which says culture, future, goal. It is important that all of you are in that picture. The picture will be taken in the courtyard between this convention center and the hotel, so you cannot miss it. At 12:30. Enjoy.